Hi, everyone, and welcome to the From Alteryx to KNIME Getting Started webinar. I'm Skalk Hadber from the education team here at KNIME. I'll be the host and co-presenter of today's webinar. Let's quickly just set some expectations for this webinar. And first of all, starting off with who is this webinar for? Now, first of all, this webinar is aimed at people familiar with low-code tools like Alteryx. This could be some data or business experts. At the same time, it's specifically aimed for people who are looking to transition from Alteryx to KNIME, and we want to show you how to get started as quickly as possible. So how are we going to do it, and what's the scope of what we're going to tackle today in this webinar? So first of all, we're going to speak about these touch points to get you transitioning from Alteryx to KNIME. And how we're going to do it is we're going to review a completed KNIME workflow, and we're going to compare the sections thereof with what you would be used to in doing in Alteryx so that you can see where the similarities and differences lie. Now, these similarities and differences, just to be a disclaimer, will be high level. We're not going to really go into too much detail, but we will at the end share a bunch of resources with you in case there's something you're interested in and want to explore even further. And again, if you are completely new to KNIME, there are two main products that we have. The one is the KNIME Analytics Platform, which is open source. That means it's for free. You can download it for free and use it for free. And this is a platform for data science and analytics. And on the other side, we have the KNIME Hub, which is the commercial product at KNIME. We'll also get to that a bit later, and that is where you can take your workflows and put them into production. Okay, so at this stage, I want to now introduce my co-presenter, Marcell, to the stage. Welcome, Marcell. I'm very excited to having you. Maybe you can give us a short introduction about yourself.
Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining the webinar, and thank you, KNIME, for inviting me. My name is Marcell Palfi. I am the head of delivery at Datraction. Through my career, I use several tools and environments for different data-related tasks. I use Alteryx for 2 years, mainly for ETL and reporting at my previous job, and currently KNIME is almost on a daily basis thing for me. So I'm actually transitioned from Alteryx to KNIME. At Datraction, we are a group of data analytics consultants offering data-related solutions. And if you are thinking about switching from Alteryx to KNIME, please feel free to contact us through our webpage or via LinkedIn.
Thank you very much, Marcell. And as I already mentioned, Marcell and I have prepared the content for this webinar together. So if we do look at the agenda, we will start off with the basics. We want to connect the dots between Alteryx and KNIME for you as quickly as possible to get you going. And then, as I mentioned already, we will go through actually a completed workflow in KNIME and look at the different sections and do a one-on-one comparison with an Alteryx workflow. And the use case there is going to be a revenue growth KPI. Now, we're not going to focus too much on the use case and the context of it, but we just wanted to have something to understand how it works in both platforms. Then after reviewing the workflow, which is mostly focusing on KNIME Analytics Platform, we'll also start touching on topics like automation. We will look at the KNIME Hub, including collaboration, which could either be in the KNIME Community Hub or KNIME Business Hub, just to prime you a little bit already what to come. Then, of course, we'll speak about next steps, where we'll look at a bunch of resources we have available for you to get transitioning, if that's what you're interested in. And we'll have a little bit of a Q&A at the end. We will be answering some questions live. Marcell, I hope you're ready. So let's jump into the basics. And here you can see we have a structure that's basically going to go through the whole webinar. So on the one side, we have Alteryx Designer, and the other side KNIME Analytics Platform. And here's a bunch of bullet points here, and we want to start connecting the dots to orientate you from the start. Now, we have 3 groups prepared. Let's start with the first group, Marcell, and this is the easy group, if I can call it like that. Take us through it here. If you are interested in transitioning to Alteryx and KNIME, what are the low-hanging fruit here that we can already connect for the people?
Yeah, in this first group, this is where the two tools are very similar. At first, of course, you will search similarities to get started. So these are the easy ones. In Alteryx, you have tools which can be found in the tool palette. In KNIME, you have nodes and you can find them in the node repository. You can check the results in Alteryx in the browser or at the output port of a tool. For that, in KNIME, you have the node monitor. If you would like to add comments or descriptions in Alteryx, you have the document tool, and in KNIME, for that, you have the annotation box.
Thanks, Marcel. We'll have a small demo in a moment so you can see these things live as well. But let's keep on connecting some of these dots. In group 2, this is where things get a little bit more interesting, you could say, because there are some similarities, but there are also some differences popping up. Marcel, take us through it.
As you mentioned, you can still find similarities, but the difference is getting bigger. In Alteryx, you have the full execution. I mean, like you can play around with caching and containers, but it's nothing like in KNIME with this step-by-step execution. It can be pretty handy when you are developing or debugging a workflow, especially with huge data sets, because basically you can run the whole workflow like each node by node. For both macros and analytical apps, you can find similarities with the components and the data app in KNIME, but they cover much wider functions in KNIME than the macros and the analytical app in Alteryx.
Thanks, Marcel. And keep this word component in mind. We'll show it to you a bit later today, but it's a really important concept and tool in KNIME, and you can do a lot of variety of things with it. Now, in group 3, this is really where things start to differ a lot. Now, the first point there is that KNIME or Alteryx Designer is a paid-for subscription, whereas KNIME Analytics Platform is completely free. Now, there's a bunch of advantages of this. Firstly, you can download it today, start playing with it, use it for free. If you're in a company and you need to scale your use of analytics or upskilling of people for data literacy or just start automating spreadsheets, this is a low-cost way of actually scaling this. Now, the second one is more about the second and third points here are more about concepts within workflows. Now here, Marcel, I think the differences, like we already said, are really big. And we've highlighted or put in bold flow variables and loops and switches because, and you could say a little bit more about this now, but it's a lot easier to do these things in KNIME, which I believe at least adds a lot of value in your workflow creation. What's your take on these?
Yeah, in Alteryx, you have a control container, and maybe I would consider to mention here the interface tool and the constants as well to pass certain information and settings to tools, but they are quite limited compared to the flow variables in KNIME. Skalka, you will have a good example for that later. Also, we have the batches and iterative macros, which are very, very more complicated to build than the ones in KNIME, where you have many built-in loops and switches for that.
Yeah, so if you are interested in taking your actual workflows to the next level, stay tuned for flow variables, loops, and switches. We'll get to those a bit later on. Now, I've prepared a demo for us just so that you can see some of these features we mentioned on the previous slide in action. Now, I've pre-recorded this so everything goes smoothly. So let's go through it. Here we have KNIME Analytics Platform. In the middle there, you see the workflow editor where all the magic happens. And if you connect the nodes to each other, that's how you create a workflow. Now, nodes that are executed in KNIME have a green traffic light, as we call it, at the bottom. And these nodes you can click on actually preview the data in the node monitor below. There's a lot of things that you can glance from it. For instance, also you can see how many rows and columns there are that is useful to track your progress. Now you can see the next node is not executed. You can do your step-by-step execution as mentioned before. And now you can go and inspect how your data changed. And here you can actually see after the join, there are 2 more columns added to your workflow, to your data set. You can also jump to the end of the workflow and go execute or reset any of the nodes as you wish. Now your gray boxes are called meta nodes. And these are the purpose of these are to hide complexity and clean up your workflow. If you double click them, you can still go inside and edit any of the nodes there. Here's a quick example of some annotations with some color boxes and comments where you can document your workflows in KNIME. You can go over to the node repository, drag and drop your nodes into your workflow editor from there, or you can pull one of the connections, and what you'll see there is a quick node adding panel that pops up, and it suggests to you the most probable task that you would need in your next step. Now, when you onboard to KNIME, what is also useful is the KNIME AI Assistant, which I quickly want to touch on. There's on the left-hand side the tab that you just need to agree to the terms and connect to a community hub. And once you've given your prompt, as we now all probably used to, you will get some text explanation and suggested nodes that could be useful for your task. You can drag and drop in them and connect it directly. There's also a build function in there where you can click on your data source, and then let's say we want to filter the column currency and we will only want to keep the euro values. We can write the prompt there, execute it, and what will happen is that KNIME will add a node for you for this task. You can go and execute it and then see in the data set below if that is actually correct. And here we can see the correct currencies were filtered out. So in a nutshell, I wanted to quickly show you a demo just to get you a feeling for how the platform works like. Now, Marcell, let's actually jump into the completed workflow we have today that we're going to break down step for step. And the use case is a revenue growth KPI. It's quite common in a lot of financial departments. And the gist of it, it measures the increase of revenues from one period to the next. If you're interested in this use case, you can read up on the blog post that's linked here. But more interesting for our purposes is the actual comparison of how this workflow would look like in Alteryx and KNIME. So Marcell, bringing you back into the conversation here, on a first glance, here we have the two completed workflows. They do exactly the same thing. They calculate the KPI growth rate and compare it between different periods. Take us through it. Someone that's maybe looking to transition, what are similarities, differences off the bat that could be interesting for some people, for some of these people?
If you check both screenshots, the both looks very similar. You can see tools organized into containers and nodes organized into meta nodes on one side. In both tools, the data is flowing from left to right, and you're connecting tools or nodes after each other. In both Alteryx and KNIME, different colors means different functions, and you will see examples where the two tools are very similar and where they are different in the future slides.
Exactly, and I think the point here is that if you're used to a low-code platform that uses visual concept nodes or tools, getting going here is quite easy. So let's actually now go step by step here, and let's start with data access, which is, as we all know, really the starting point of any data solution. Take us through here again some of the similarities, differences people should be aware of if they're looking to transition from Alteryx to KNIME.
This is an example where they have similarities, but they are pretty different as well. In Alteryx, you have one tool for mainly every input option, and in KNIME you have separate nodes for different input types. At first, it might seem a bit more difficult, but you can easily find them in the node repository. So basically, if you are looking for an Excel or CSV reader, you just type in Excel into the node repository, and you can find it with ease. As they are made especially for these connections, I found their configuration way easier. Also, for a few specific connectors, which are not part of the native palette of Alteryx and developed by third parties, you may need pay for extra licenses, and which is not the case with KNIME. Another thing I think it's worth to mention that if you start with any settings, and it's true for every node, not just the input ones, you can use a question mark in the configuration dialog and check what each settings will do for you at the node settings, and it makes your transition way easier.
Exactly, and the main message here I would say is that in KNIME, and this is the difference you probably have to get used to, there are dedicated nodes for dedicated operations. We'll see this as a theme right through today's webinar. And the reason for this flexibility, I think one of the logic behind it is not only to show visually that what is the task doing, but if you do your step-by-step execution and you need to go and audit and see your results, maybe do some troubleshooting, it's a lot more transparent what's going on. So that's definitely one thing to take note of. Now we've covered data access. We said that we have dedicated nodes to help you navigate this transition of just orientating you with the different data source and data types that KNIME Analytics Platform can actually connect to. We have a cheat sheet It's absolutely free to download. And there you can see that KNIME connects to almost everything. And probably if we're not connecting to it at the moment, the development team is working on some connection possibility there. So go have a look at this cheat sheet if you're interested in that. Okay, so we've done data access. Now within this workflow, our use case workflow, the next operation, and this is kind of what happens with a lot of use cases where you have different data sources, you need to start joining your data. So Marcell, differences, similarities that could be interested for someone looking to transition.
Yeah, as you mentioned, there are some low-hanging fruits. This is one, especially. But the tool and the node are pretty much the same in terms of function and setup, so this is an easy transition.
So let's keep on going. Now we looked at joins. Let's look a little bit about cleaning your data, classic use case, missing values. There you can see dedicated node, missing value. Marcell, again, similarities, differences that could be interesting for someone that is looking to transition.
In case of missing values in Alteryx, you use the formula tool and the custom formula to tackle this task. In KNIME, just like in many cases, as you mentioned, Skulk, you have dedicated nodes for that. You don't have to write formulas, just use their configuration window. For example, in case of missing values, you just have a drop-down menu to select how to handle your missing values.
Exactly. All right, so we've looked at the data access. We looked at joining different data sources. Here we had some cleaning. Next, just to zoom out for a moment, we're going to now go to the second meta node there, and that's where what we'll discuss next. And this is all about doing a bit of a summary of the actual data over a certain period. So if we open this meta node, we have some transformation happening here. Again, over to you, Marcell, the same as before. What are the key similarities, differences to help someone who might be interested in transitioning?
Same scenario as before with the date and time extraction. You set formulas to extract the year, month, and day from the date. In KNIME, you have a dedicated node for that, which is again easy to set up.
Then moving along, within the same meta node, we have the actual summary of the data. And take us through the same question, this time referring to the group by node in KNIME.
Yeah, in Alteryx, you have the summarize tool and you have the group by in KNIME. They're pretty similar. You set groups, aggregation columns, and your aggregation method, and you will get your aggregated table.
Perfect. And now for the actual math formulas in this specific workflow where we calculate the growth rate. Let's zoom out again. You can see we're going now to the meta node way on the right-hand side of the workflow here in the KNIME side. Now, if we zoom in here and we open it up, take us through here. How would you normally do some calculations in Alteryx? How does it compare to KNIME? What are the key similarities and differences?
The formula tool has been used to do the actual calculations. Showed one of the first slides to calculate the growth rate. In KNIME, you can use the column expression node, which is very similar concept as the formula tool. So you can just type in a custom formula, or as they call it in KNIME, an expression. Also, KNIME, if you like granularity, also in KNIME you have dedicated nodes for different transformations. So if you would like to just manipulate strings, you can select the string manipulation, and for mathematical computations, you can also have the math formula.
Again, that's a good example. Column expression you can use if you're used to the tools in Alteryx. Very similar one-on-one comparison. But if you do get used to the KNIME flexibility, where you can have dedicated nodes for dedicated operations, there are a bunch of options to actually do it in a more granular fashion. Now, we also have a little bit of some exciting news to share. Just a heads up, KNIME is actually working on a new expression node, and there's two things that are to take note of here. And the first one is just the new UI based on some user experience. It's a lot easier to handle. But secondly, and perhaps more exciting, is that within the new expressions node, the AI assistant will be built in, and you can ask it then, as you do normally, you prompt the natural language, and the Kai or KNIME AI assistant will then assist you in writing your expression, and then you can insert it. Of course, you can execute it and see within your step-by-step execution in your node monitor if this is actually the result you want. If not, you open it again and you change it. So this is something to look out for to help you along the way in building your workflows. Okay, just to return now back to our workflow and use case, Marcell. So at the end of this workflow, after calculating the growth rates for the different periods, now something that you want to do maybe is filter out certain periods. So let's just speak about row filtering in general. Alteryx to KNIME, what are the key differences and similarities?
It's also a low-hanging fruit. Again, you can include or exclude rows based on your criteria in both Alteryx and KNIME with the filter and the row filter as well. Yeah.
Okay, so again, the message here up until now is there's a lot of easier transitions, but now we're also going to come to the part where we'll see a little bit more differences. So now we've calculated and we filtered out the growth rates also for specific periods. And the next question is, actually, before I get there, let's just quickly comment on this. We spoke about row filtering in our use case. We don't have column filtering, but of course, this is something that's quite common. Maybe 2 sentences on that comparison, Marcell.
Yeah, at the beginning, after you read your data, if you would like to filter your columns or rename them or do any pre-work on that, in Alteryx you can use the select tool, and KNIME has the table manipulator, which is pretty similar. You can filter, reorder, rename your columns, change your data type, but as in many cases before, there is always another workaround in KNIME. So if you just need one or two of these transformations, KNIME has individual nodes, for example, for column name, resort, and so on. This is the thing I pretty much like in KNIME, that there is many workarounds and options and good solutions to complete the task.
Exactly. And now we're actually at the point where I was busy explaining. So now that we've built the workflow, we've calculated the growth rate, there are a couple of options that you can do with your new data table. For instance, you can filter out by here, and a typical thing people like to do here is to visualize, to see if there's more insights that you can get for it. So we are now completely on the right-hand side of our workflow. And if we do look at the options here, Marcell, take us through it, maybe from your experience as well, key similarities, differences, and just doing basic visualizations from Alteryx to KNIME.
Yeah, for a bar chart, you can use the interactive charts in Alteryx and dedicated nodes just like before in KNIME. I found their setup very easier in KNIME, and also I would like to mention one of my favorites, the eCharts view node, where you can browse from a lot of options of Apache eCharts, and you can create pretty cool custom charts. It's using JavaScript, but don't be afraid of that. You can use Sky to help with. Skalk, I think you will show this to us.
That's correct. I mean, when it comes to visualizations, the best way is to show it and not to talk about it. So I have also pre-recorded a small demo just to show you how it looks like. So if we then look here, there we are executing the basic bar chart, and you can see there's the interactive view. Here we can open the configuration dialog. And what I wanted to highlight here is if you do end up changing configuration, you can immediately see how it changes in the node. Then, as mentioned, we have the eCharts node here, where you have access to all the libraries from Apache. There you can see some templates. You can click on a template, in this case, a line plot that immediately shows you something about your data. You can also use Kai here within it to have a prompt, let's say, building a similar bar chart for 2022 that we just saw. And now what you can see is it generates the script for you. And if you know, you can go and check it out, the differences. And if you want to, then accept, and you can see a preview of your chart there. You can keep on prompting and changing the chart as you want to. I left it as is. And now you can, it's part of your workflow and you can execute it. So moving along now, if you are one of these people that build a workflow in Alteryx or KNIME, and normally you don't do your visualization within that tool, but you actually then take your tables and you push it to some other tool, export it to some other tool. Maybe you're interested in Power BI or Tableau, that we see a lot of people like to do visualizations there. Maybe you like to do your visualizations or reporting in Excel, or you just want to pop your data table push it back into a database. these are some of the options. But speaking of exporting, from your experience, Marcel, what are the key differences and similarities here?
I would say the situation is pretty much the same as with the inputs. You mainly have one output tool in Alteryx, and you have dedicated nodes for different outputs in KNIME. And you can send your results whatever whatever tool your organization is using. Also, you can use Power BI in Alteryx, but KNIME has Tableau as well.
Exactly. So there's, again, a lot of similarities, but you see the granularity and flexibility of the 9 visual concepts at play here. It could be that you don't want to visualize it, you don't want to export your data. Maybe you just want to take your visualizations and have a static report and write that as a PDF. Now, these are two similar functionalities within Alteryx and KNIME, but there are also some differences. And which are the ones that people need to take note of if they're interested in transitioning?
If I want to be honest, I always had a bit of a hard time using the layout to create these custom PDF reports, but they are pretty easy to set up in KNIME. To set up a template, you just have to set up a template and create a PDF report.
Exactly. And what this slide also shows, if you can see the 2 bar charts there, if you combine them together into this gray box there, which is called a component, which we already referred to, that is how you would create your static report, and as we'll see later on, your data apps in KNIME. Now, this gray box is similar to the meta node that we saw earlier, so it hides complexity, but components, as we'll now see coming up, have additional functionalities within KNIME. So speaking of more additional functionalities, here's the workflow that we now put into created a data app from in KNIME Analytics Platform. You can see we've taken the visualizations and we put it into a component. Let's open this component, and the same question to you. What are the similarities and differences between something like a data app in KNIME and what you get in Alteryx? And what are the things that you need to take note of if you're interested in transitioning, Marcel?
Yeah, we are getting a bit more complex here, and this is the point when the two tools are pretty different. If I would like to somehow introduce the data app, is kind of like if you merge the interface tools with the interactive charts in Alteryx. The data app is pretty interactive. You can re-execute different parts of the workflow, set up different filters, get a chart as a result. So yeah, it covers a lot of functions, and you can go as complex as you want.
Exactly. And Marcel, here you can see also on the KNIME side that within the data app, there's actually 1 or 2 extra nodes that we added. These are widgets, and I'll show you now in a live demo, but they actually allow the user to interact with the data app. And in this case, you can choose different years. But let me jump over to the live demo that I recorded in order to show this to you, because it's something that you need to see. So here we go. There I'm opening or executing the data app, and you can see now shows me the 2 bar charts we had earlier. You can hover over them and look at the different options. Then if you click on a different here, what actually happens in the back end is a part of your workflow gets re-executed to then be able for you to present the data or the bar chart for a different period. Okay, Marcel, we've now gone through the first section of the webinar where we looked at a completed workflow. And here are some of the key points in our comparison that people, I hope, to take with you from the comparison. So first of all, what makes the transition quite easy, I would say, is that because both Alteryx and KNIME share a visual and low-code approach. This means that there's a lot of low-hanging fruit, as we showed, connecting the dots. A lot of tasks are performed similar in both of the tools. So getting started is actually, there's actually a low barrier of entry there. Then one thing we highlighted as well, a key point here, is that KNIME is more flexible with its dedicated nodes. And this becomes really powerful if you combine the dedicated nodes with the step-by-step execution, where you can immediately see what's happening from the nodes in your workflow, and you can also go and check how your data is changing along the way with your node monitor. This combination is really powerful if you're doing audits, if you're doing some troubleshooting, etc. And then maybe another thing to highlight here is the custom visualization options. We showed that you have the dedicated visualization nodes within KNIME, but also if you are interested, you can look at the Apache eCharts with the whole library at the back end. And on top of that, you have the KNIME AI assistant Kai built in to help you a little bit with the scripting if that's something that you're not used to. So that's a quick summary. Marcell, let's now go over to the next topic. So now people have built their workflow, and the workflow, to be clear, the workflow itself is already one step of automation because you are automating repetitive tasks. It might be spreadsheet automation, things that people are used to, but there are a bunch of other levels of automation that we can add to that. Now, first off, staying within the workflow, there are one or two additional things you can do in KNIME to automate your workflow even more. So we'll start up with the topic of flow variables. We won't go into too much detail, but just so you get a little bit of a taste to it. And let me take you back to the data app at the end of our workflow that we showed you earlier. And if we open this data app, Marcell, we saw there a bunch of new nodes that we added, and one of them is this widget that that actually has the functionality of choosing the different periods. And how it does that, it actually, based on your choice, the interactive choice of the user, changes the parameter and feeds it back to the filter node, and that gets re-executed with the workflow. Now, question to Marcell again, where are the similarities here? Because this is only one use case of flow variable 9, but what would be similar in Alteryx, and where do things start to diverge?
As I mentioned before, with the interface tool, you can pass certain user inputs to different tools. So, for example, here is a drop-down menu for a filter, which is similar to KNIME. You can see with this red line called the flow variables, you can pass certain informations. But in KNIME, they have a much wider purpose or use to do that. And I think Skulk, you will have a nice example for that.
Yes, let's jump into one more example of flow variables because there are various use cases. Let's keep it simple. Let's say, for instance, you have some customer data that comes in, and there in the meta node, it's already processed, a little bit cleaned, transformed, and it's ready now to start being used. Now, a typical workflow might look that you have a specific store that you're looking for, let's say the store with the highest sales for the month, and you would filter that store out. Now, if you know the store already, it's easy. You configure your node and you have your store. Now, what happens if you get new data in every month? Normally, you have to go and manually change your configurations of your nodes in order to choose the correct store. Now, with flow variables in KNIME, you have the following option. You can build a second branch where you already go and aggregate the stores in terms of the amount of sales. You can also sort them. And then the top row there, you can make a flow variable. And this flow variable, this is a form of parameterization. It takes that parameter and then it sends it with this red connection to the row filter. And that will then be dynamically updated, the settings, every time you execute your workflow with new data. Because if you have new data, you're going to have a new top store, and you want the filter to adjust automatically according to it. Now, Marcell, this is a very simple use case, but it gives people a little bit of idea of the power of flow variables within KNIME. And from your experience, how is this something that you've been using? And maybe you can tell us a little bit more on your take of flow variables.
Yeah, it was a real game changer for me when I started to use KNIME. One of our previous projects, we built huge financial ETL workflows, and the flow variables made it possible to minimize the manual inputs changes required in the long run when your thresholds, filters, and formulas can change over the time. So I think it's a pretty powerful function, and I think it's kind of similar to variables in traditional coding. So yeah, it gives you a huge power.
And what's nice here is that it stays within the visual low-code approach. Moving on, we also have two more concepts that we'll briefly touch upon that are stays in the low-code visual approach within KNIME. The first one is loops. it's very intuitive to use because you only add a loop start and a loop end node. So you have a loop body. This can be different types of loops, and that's it. And you configure the nodes, and that's how you use a loop within KNIME. I know that's a little bit of a high-level explanation, but that's the basic concept. The same is for switches. You can have different switches in KNIME. Here we have a case switch. You can also have the if switch, etc. And there, based on a little bit of logic you configure within the configuration, you can either activate the top or the bottom branch depending on your use case. Now, throwing this back to you, Marcell, key differences from your experience from Alteryx and KNIME that people should be aware of when transitioning here.
This is a part where the two tools are totally different. I mean, on the left, you can see a batch macro to iterate over certain groups. In KNIME, you have a dedicated loop for that, so you don't have to build it from scratch, just the loop body, and you don't have to save them separately. You can just include it in the workflow. Just to mention, for example, one of my favorite loops is the recursive loop, which allows you to calculate the values calculated in the previous iteration. So yeah, it's pretty helpful and powerful. On the second picture on the left, you can see it's a community extension. It's basically an input switch. And as you can see inside it, it's quite complex. While in KNIME, you have different built-in switches, which is easy to set up in just like one node. And for example, you can set like which ports to be active in certain circumstances.
Exactly. And if you are interested in these topics to even automate and control your workflows and to a more complex and next level, we'll share some resources at the end. But I want to move along now. And we spoke briefly about automating your workflow itself even more. But now let's get to the next step, and this is full automation. And probably for a lot of Alteryx users, this would not be something new. And this is all about scheduling. Now with KNIME, and this is where the second software we have, the commercial offering starts to play a role. And there are two options here. If you're working in a small team and you don't need a lot of resources, you can the KNIME Community Hub could be an option for you. And here you can see a screenshot of the actual workflow we had uploaded to the Community Hub. And here you can see it's pretty intuitive how to set up your schedule. When do you want this workflow to run? Now, this is also perhaps a low-cost optional alternative for people coming from Alteryx that is previously used to the designer and the desktop scheduler automator combo. So this could be a nice alternative for you. And this functionality is also part of the KNIME Business Hub, which is of course more suited for bigger companies and enterprises. Now, moving along, before I forget, and this is actually quite exciting. So Marcell and I were thinking of, not making this a bit more concrete for you. And here's the idea. If you want to go and try out KNIME Analytics Platform, which is already free and open source, you can go download it. We want you, and if you're interested in trying out the combination of building a workflow and then taking it to the next step of fully automating and scheduling it, we are going to offer everyone that it's registered for the webinar a free code, a free voucher to go and use on the KNIME Community Hub. We can have a team subscription and for a limited time have execution resources so you can go and try this out. So check out afterwards with a follow-up email. You'll get the voucher with the coupon code. And if you want to, go try it out and see for yourself how this combination works. Now, speaking of additional options, Marcell, and here we start touching more on the KNIME Business Hub. Apart from scheduling, you can also run and share your data apps, also run them on KNIME Community Hub. But within KNIME Business Hub, there are some additional features like deploying your workflows as REST APIs, as triggers, etc. And within the KNIME Business Hub, if you're interested in that, go have a look at it. There's all the features you might be looking for in your enterprise company. Now, just to quickly sum it up, Marcell, here we already, and this is some of the things we highlighted and you mentioned, the power of flow variables, loops, and switches within KNIME. And this is still on the workflow automation and parameterization level. And then if you want to do full automation, you have the two options of the KNIME Hub, the Community Hub, or the Business Hub. You can run data apps and or deploy your workflows as REST services, triggers, etc. So this is the topic of automation. Now, perhaps in today's times of doing business, collaboration is increasingly important, Marcell. And here, for those who do not know what the KNIME Hub is in general, let me quickly run it through for you. So first of all, KNIME Hub is a place where you can search and find a lot of things. This includes workflows. If you go into KNIME Community Hub, there's a bunch of already example workflows that you can download for free and get going as soon as possible. They cover a wide variety of use cases as well. More than searching and finding things on the hub, this could be the community hub, or if you install Business Hub within your company's infrastructure, you can also store and share your own workflows within spaces. And this becomes really, really powerful because reusing and reusability of your workflows, of your components, are crucial to align and make people work more efficiently. Again, we already mentioned you can collaborate in teams. Here's where things like permissions, etc., start to play a role. And then, as we said, this is all made possible by being able to execute and deploy your workflows and data apps on the KNIME Hub. Now, speaking, Marcell, bringing you back in here, maybe you can speak to your own experience of using the KNIME Hub as a place to share workflows, components, also extensions. We've not really touched upon extensions that much so far, but extensions in KNIME is all the additional things you can install depending on your use case. Geospatial, if you want to do some deep learning, all these additional things, they don't come preloaded in the KNIME Analytics install. It's just too big. So you can go and find these extensions on the KNIME Hub. But Marcell, just bringing back to you, what is your experiences? Also maybe differences in using the KNIME Hub for collaboration versus coming from Alteryx?
Yeah, I maybe just want to mention a quick thing here. I really like how both hubs works. I use them still using the community hub for look to different solutions, extensions, and components. And we are actively using the business hub as we developing a lot of different components. So we share and collaborate them there.
Then just to quickly summarize, touching on what you already mentioned, the collaboration is made possible with the KNIME Hub, either Community Hub or the Business Hub, depending on your situation. And there it's really a place where you can share, reuse components, workflows, extensions. There's really, because KNIME Analytics Platform is open source, we have a lot of community or partner extensions that help us expand the functionality of the platform. You can work in teams and you can share and consume your deployments like data apps, REST APIs, etc. Now, before we get to the question and answer part of today's webinar, let's just briefly speak about some next steps. People are interested after watching this webinar and transitioning. What are some of the resources available immediately that you can get started? So first of all, if you just want a quick comparison between tools and nodes, for instance, we have a free cheat sheet you can download dedicated to transition from Alteryx to KNIME. We also have, for the business context, the e-guide, which will be released very soon. I think, Marcell, you've been working on that as well a little bit. And this is how to set up the business environment from Alteryx to KNIME. So that's something to look out for coming out soon. Then if you're interested in actually the workflow part of KNIME and you want to learn more about how to use it, some of the maybe functionalities we showed with loops, switches, and flow variables, take a look at the free L1 and L2 self-paced courses we have. If you're looking more on the productionization side of things, go look at the L3 courses. And if you really want to have an in-depth comparison of both Alteryx to KNIME, or to see how this transition goes, there's a book we have that's also free to download. It's called, most appropriately, From Alteryx to KNIME. It's been updated, I think, last week, so it's pretty up to date. It's new in terms of the functionalities and with the KNIME, so go have a look at it. And of course, we already spoke about the KNIME Community Hub, but there you can really go and find some workflow solutions already that you can go play around with and check out for the coupon code in the email if you want to test out some of the scheduling options there. Now, Marcell, let's go over to the Q&A section of today's webinar. We still have about 14 minutes left, so we can fit in a couple of questions here. Let me just open the document that I'm sharing with my colleagues to grab some of the questions, and I can see some of them here. Okay, I think let's start with this question. This is kind of an easy one. And I think I'll throw this one to you, Marcel. So the question is very simple. Can I use KNIME on Mac?
Yeah, of course. Actually, at Datraction, we are mostly using Mac. So yeah, it's a pretty good thing for us. For example, if we would like to use Alteryx, we would need to buy a new machine or just set up a remote computer. So yeah, absolutely, you can use KNIME on Mac, Windows, and Linux.
Thanks, Marcel. Sorry, I'm just also time sharing here with the questions. Exactly, the point is you can download KNIME, install it KNIME in Linux, Windows, and Mac. So you have that flexibility around that as well. The next question I think we should tackle, this is to do with geospatial data, actually. So the question refers to, if I paraphrase, Alteryx is quite good at processing geospatial data. Can you do something similar in KNIME? And the short answer is yes. You have to download extension, so it's not out of the box, but you just download extension for free. And we actually developed this geospatial extension in collaboration with Harvard. And there you can process all different types of geospatial data. You have a variety of visualizations you can also use with that. So go check it out. Again, there's with KNIME maybe a difference as well with Alteryx. You can do, as we showed, a lot of the functions and basically all of your workflow automation from spreadsheets within KNIME, but you can do also other things like machine learning, etc. So if you're interested in doing more advanced analytics, this is all possible within KNIME Analytics Platform. Okay, if I scroll down here, this one could also be interesting. It pops out to me because it's about Gen AI. I'm going to actually throw this one to you, Marcel. So the question is about, can you connect and use Gen AI models within KNIME Analytics Platform? I think you have experience with that. Maybe you can try and answer that one.
Yeah, sure. Like, surprise, KNIME has dedicated nodes for that. You can store your credentials there, and I think you can use OpenAI and Hugging Face, for example.
Exactly. So you can connect to the open source models. You can connect to OpenAI within your workflow. Perhaps maybe just continuing the conversation on AI and KNIME. Just to remind everyone, we already showed you functionality of the KNIME AI assistant to use as a to ask questions if you are uncertain, to help you figure out, for instance, how to filter things in KNIME. You can also use the build mode. You can build things within KNIME using Gen AI models. But maybe a question could be, what if I want to use KNIME Analytics Platform with some AI model, but within the business context? Now, the Business Hub allows you to connect your preferred AI model in the company to the analytics platform, the AI assistant. So if that is something that you want to use within your company structures and regulate what data goes in and out, that is also possible. Probably worth mentioning at this point. Okay, let me have a look at some more questions here. Here's another one and this has to do a little bit with credentials. Now I'm going to quickly read and paraphrase it. How are credentials for various data sources stored in KNIME Business Hub specifically? And then continuing, there's some of the pain points of the Alteryx server credentials. Okay, let's just summarize it. So how is credentials treated within KNIME Business Hub? Very simple. There's the secret store feature of KNIME Business Hub where you can store all your credentials, and these can then also be accessed or at least accessed or the right word is now not coming to mind, but access these credentials again when you build your workflow. So go check out the secret store functionality. It has secrets retriever node within KNIME that you can actually use for this. Okay, let me see here. Here's another one, swapping topics to workflow building again, it seems like. Marcel, I'm going to throw this one to you. So we've shown that KNIME and Alteryx, something similar. You had KNIME nodes that have different colors, but the question is about the ports had different shapes and colors as well. Maybe you can quickly explain what's going on there.
Yeah, in the example, I think we had three of them, but there are way more. The black triangle is mainly for table outputs. The red circles are for flow variables, and the red squares are for the database connections. So this is making kind of easy to see like what kind of input a node will require and what kind of output you will expect for there.
Yeah, so just to summarize that while I'm reading through the next question here, yeah, we have the different the ports, and it kind of intuitively explains to you what's going on. And it's very simple to learn at the start as well. Here's another question that's quite interesting. Do you get application support with issues from KNIME? Is there price involved, etc.? So in short, yes, there are very multiple layers of support. The first go-to place for support in KNIME is always the forum, which is not only supported by the community. We have a very strong community base with expert users there that will probably jump and start answering questions for you. Of course, there's also threads of previous questions. So most probably, if you have some issue, you'll find it already on the forum. So that's the first layer. The second layer, especially if you are a paying customer, we have a support line and we have a dedicated support team to assist you with all of your issues that you might have. Again, there's additional layers to that. If there's a lot of support you need, you can also look at the partner infrastructure. But I'm not part of the sales and customer care team, so let me not go too much down this avenue. But if you're interested in that, please reach out to us and we can see what fits in terms of your needs. Anything else to add in support and KNIME, Marcel? Maybe you can also give your experience there while I check the next question.
It's a good one. Yeah, I use the community hub and the forum a lot when I started using KNIME and when I met with certain things and certain issues and certain issues, and not issues but difficulties. Yeah, so I will definitely recommend to use the forum.
I have another question here, Marcel. I'm going to also throw it to your side. And it's very simple. It says, I have not seen components or shared solutions in Alteryx indicating collaboration in Alteryx. Or question, is this indicating a little bit of inferiority in Alteryx, or maybe something that KNIME is better at? The question is then, is this a correct perception from your experience? Maybe you're better to answer this. This difference between KNIME and Alteryx, is that something that let's say is a strength of KNIME?
The components, I would say so. I mean, like I pretty like how wide is the scope that with a component can cover. So, and a lot of things that you can do with the component. So yeah, I think I would say yeah, this is a point I prefer in KNIME more. Especially like you can include data Fs and charts and everything into a component. So yeah.
Good. So it seems like the short answer there is yes.
Yeah.
Here's another question. It's perhaps interesting as well for people. So a lot of times when you work with big data and big data bases and stuff, you can't do your processing of that data and the operations within your analytics platform. The question is, can KNIME push down execution to databases? Do you want to try and take this one, Marcel?
I think I'm going to leave it to you.
Okay.
One.
So the short answer is yes, KNIME pushes it. And then we have some dedicated nodes where you can do the actual task, perform it on the database and not pull it. It doesn't make sense to pull billions of rows into KNIME Analytics Platform. I mean, you can do it if your system is up to it, if you have enough memory. The analytics platform itself can handle it, but it's more of a memory issue. And there again, you have nodes, various nodes. If I think here, and I see there's some notes here that I can also look at from from Dirk. So we have the Microsoft SQL Server connector, MySQL connector, Postgres connector, Oracle connector, Snowflake connector. You get the point. We have dedicated connectors that help you do exactly this. A related question, actually, while we have it, we have a minute or two here still. Can KNIME connect to cloud storages? Again, yes. SharePoint, Google, whatever. There's dedicated nodes. You might need to install an extension for this, but this is definitely possible as well. Okay, we have only a couple of minutes left. I think we can start wrapping up the question and answer session here, Marcell. So if I can just get my screen back, let me just go to the correct thing here. Bring up my screen here. We just remind people of the next steps. So after the webinar, if you want to stay in touch with us here at KNIME, if you're interested, if you have any questions, here are a variety of channels that you can reach out to us. There's additional resources as well. If you haven't downloaded KNIME yet, you can also go to the streaming platform you're on, and there on the left-hand side, right at the bottom, you can see the icon there to download KNIME. Again, KNIME Analytics Platform is open source and free, and you can go download it. And that is different from the KNIME Hub. A reminder as well, with the follow-up email from us, you also get a voucher code so that you can go try out some of the scheduling options and maybe running your data apps or just running your workflows on a community hub. So that's the commercial product KNIME has. And so there you can get a feel for what the hub looks like. Also, if you might be interested in KNIME Business Hub. So please go have a look there. Then to wrap things up, if you want to reach out to me or Marcell directly, there's Marcell's email address as well. You can find both of us on LinkedIn, so feel free to connect. At this point, Marcell, do you want to have a last word before we say goodbye?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for everyone for joining, and also again thank you for inviting me. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Marcell. I had a good time co-presenting this webinar with you. Everyone that joined us, wherever you are, thank you very much. And until next time, ciao.